from other countries are familiar with UK, US, there's one in Canada, there are 6 sites throughout the world. And to respond to your question, what we do every day, which is why I look really exhausted and happy, is that we take the work of academics and ask them to write a version of it that's accessible to the general public. And I work with a team of editors, and we spend our time editing. And all we do is apply very basic journalistic skills. We ask questions like, what do you mean? Why does this matter? How does this connect to this? And I have to say that very often we don't understand the 800 words that's sent to us. And so we do go in and try and read the journal article, and quite often that doesn't help either. We can't understand it either. So I'm sort of fascinated by the role of academic publishing, because I think it's written, to your point, it's written for a really small community. Academics who write for the conversation do say that their journal articles are getting read more because we require reference. So there's actually a URL through to the original article, and they're getting more and more readership. But I agree with you completely. The tragedy is that there is all this beautiful, beautiful knowledge, and all this, these incredible minds, this incredible work that's being done, and it's accessible to very, 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 very few people. And if there were other mechanisms, other kinds of conversations, like a site highline, which is only a drop in the ocean, considering how much material. I think it would be much better for policymakers, for the general public, for this knowledge to be shared.
Thank you, Caroline. Okay, let's take the other person. Get his hand up at the back.
Hello, my name is Mudiwa Gabaza. I'm from a small organization called Live Media. And the issue I wanted to bring up is the other side of this conversation, because right now we're talking about the knowledge that's already there and saying, how do you make it accessible to the ordinary person? And now my question is, how does the ordinary person contribute to the conversation? Because there are a lot of people out there who feel that the world of academic publishing is the preserve of people that have PhDs, that are maybe working, doing postdoctorate studies and the like. And there are people who might have experience, but don't have qualifications. And some people honestly feel that they have contributions to make, but they don't have the access to the qualifications. And we were hearing from some of the presentations that there's a hierarchy, in terms of some of the publications, some of the sightings that are done, and how does the ordinary person actually get their voice out there. There's actually, I know of a small organization that's operating, it's a Pan-African one, of young people who actually came together, young academics, masters and PhD students. They started something called Gov Enhance Africa to actually address this particular problem, because there are a lot of people across Africa, for example, because I understand this is an international audience, a lot of young people who might not have access to tertiary education, to PhDs and the like, but they do have ideas, they are writing, but they aren't able to get their work published in these, in the prestigious journals, for example. So what they have done is actually gathered a team of academics from a number of universities that actually take the writings of ordinary people and actually peer review these writings and actually publish them on other platforms. So the work that is produced is quality assured because it goes through the peer review process. So the question is just more about what can be done in terms of actually creating the knowledge, because we were focusing just now around how do we get knowledge to the ordinary person. But now my question is, how do we create spaces where the ordinary person contributes more to the body of literature?
Thanks very much. I'm going to throw it back to the panel, but it strikes me that actually, because we have the facility of technology and the online environment, there are all sorts of ways to do these collaborations and to work both in the sort of very high-end, rarefied space, as well as So we don't have to, I don't think we have to make the choices of this or that. I think we can do the both and. You know, we can position ourselves in different ways when we want to. So I'm going to throw it back to the panel because there are a few things there. I mean, we're also aware that, you know, some of the big high-end publishers have been boycotted by universities because some universities don't want to give the free labor any longer to publishers who are as, you know, profitable as Facebook and Google. So, yeah. So, and then the other thing I wanted to also say is I'm aware from the journals I publish in that very often the publisher makes available 50 downloads. You know, these sort of techniques, where if I publicize it on Twitter or Facebook, those first 50 people are going to get my paper. And in fact, because I've got a network of mostly journalists, I've now found the journalists are reading, you know, people in the media are reading what I do because of that facility. It's very, very nice. So I think while we're sitting in quite complex space, we're also sitting in a space which is ripe with opportunity if we're clever. So I'm going to throw it back to you, and you have just a few finishing remarks on any one of these issues that's been raised that you would like to respond to.
Let me start with the first question, and I'll just respond to that. I have less to say about how to bring the general public in. But your question reminded me of a remark my brother made to me. I come from a family of everybody else is non-academic except for me. My father is now 95. A few weeks ago, he asked my brother, why does he do that research and write that stuff just so he can talk to other people like him? Right? And my brother didn't have a good answer. But that, I think, is a problem. And I think especially when you're looking at media, and you're looking at media business, media economics, you're inherently talking about a subject matter that has to be addressed from an interdisciplinary perspective. And when you're doing that, you're writing for people that don't all come from the same technical training. Right? I took, part of my PhD was theoretical econometrics, the statistical side of economics. And that's advanced so much that fortunately my students can do things now I never could. But now, it does get back to the question of the general public, though. Somebody that doesn't have that training will not pass that filter in terms of how do you separate good analysis of data and selecting good data from not. So I think the general public should have access to the journal, but the criteria for being evaluated should still be there. But if you're writing well, and this is one of the issues that as an editor, that you're writing a paper and you want people to read it. Well, that means you have to sell that paper. Your introduction has to tell somebody why they want to know, and why it's interesting, why it fills a gap, if there is a gap. I got so much stuff that is just a replication with a different data set. You say, because we can do it, that's not a reason. And you should be able to tell people why it matters. And not only that, but if you can tell it in plain English, or plain whatever language you want to use, and tell the story in a way that is memorable and that people will respond to, it will appeal more to academics, and you get a better response from academics as well. In the end, it's sort of the metaphors we take away that guide our thinking, and so we recite things like network effects and network externalities. We all know what that means, but at one point we didn't, and it's become part of the general parlance. And it was sold, but you have to sell it, and the selling is a really important part of that.
And this is an issue that's very dear to my heart, because a couple of years ago, I was making another of these presentations in a conference, and I had an out-of-body experience. I was looking at myself, and I thought, nobody cares, Sophia, whatever you're talking about. You're just talking to these 20 people here, the same thing. You know, every year you come here, you talk to the same academic, the researchers, and I mean, are they even, whatever results you found, are they even relevant? So I made a decision to engage the industry. That's when I started doing a lot of research partnership with media companies, especially with tech companies. And I realized that it's just translation. It's all about translation. So the researchers have to have this in mind. You still have to be rigorous. It's not that if you're talking to industry people that you can do whatever. You have to be rigorous, but you have to be relevant. You're just talking about the same thing from their perspective. Like, why does it matter?
to the decision makers. So it's more like learning, and there is no need to talk about significance level, to talk about all these things. Just tell them what it means in their context. I have been doing that, forming relationship and translate results. But you also kind of need institutional support, because researchers, we don't have time to write a medium piece when they have to write the articles. It's just not possible. You're asking too much of them. And at the University of Florida, we do have some external relations directors and his departments. All they do is to translate what we have into the industry. So they have subscribers, a lot of different industries. We push out stuff on Medium. We try to translate, but it is hard for junior faculty to do those things. But I think you pointed out a very important issue in academics. You've got to translate what you have into the industry, and then you bring back new ideas for your studies.
And I just want to make the point that it is that very small little group who know exactly what your research is about and who are your peers, who keep you completely accountable about your methods and the rigorousness of that research. So if you can match that with translation out into the place where it can have an impact, you can keep both those things going. I think that's very, very powerful. It's extraordinary academic work, rather than just keeping it here because you're worried that the rigor might go. Thanks.
Thank you. I think if I say that I come from a farmer's family, and maybe I'm the first person to have a graduation from my relatives as family members, sons, whatsoever. I forget about my PhD and other things. So in that sense, I always believe, and I strongly believe, and as the gentleman rightly pointed out, that the results of our research, the outcome of our research, must reach the downtrodden. And downtrodden should reap the fruits one way or the other way. That is the purpose of the education. Here, send us 3 copies of the journal. Every issue, I receive only 3 copies. That's the only thing I receive from them. Other than that, I don't receive anything. So what I do is that I just take those 2 copies. 1 copy I keep with me for my record purposes, and then the 2 copies I try to donate to the libraries, preferably the university where I work and maybe another library I donate. So at least I believe that that can be used by some of the students and other people. I also mentioned to the publishers that at least a few issues, the older few issues, they must make accessible to the public. Because every journal issue, if somebody wants to access, they charge 50 euros, which is very expensive, for South African standards or any standards for that matter. But reviewers, editors, editorial board members, nobody gets even a single cent. So it's a business by the publisher. So what we, as editors, we put a demand for our publisher that at least some of the articles and some of the issues must be kept online and they should be accessible. So that is the demand. And if somebody needs the article, they also write to me as editor-in-chief, then I try to share. Although there are restrictions, we are not supposed to share from the publisher point of view, but maybe sometimes I do share for academic purposes actually. So that's how we try to handle it. Thank you.
Okay, I think that we're seeing right now an increasing discussion about the role of relevance of the research we're conducting, but also in terms of impact. And when I say impact, I don't mean numbers of citations, but also societal impact. I have to admit, though, that I don't really see, at least John's, opening up to any kind of contributions that do not follow the current academic standards. But going back to your comment, where I do see a good platform of engaging with non-academic discourse is that when we share our insights in popular science terms on other channels, inviting practitioners and society to engage in this discussion. However, I don't really see that discussion taking place directly in the journal, but rather based on published articles taking place elsewhere in social media.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to close the session. You can continue this over a glass of wine. Thank you for your attention and for being here. You talked about the graveyard shift at like 2 o'clock this afternoon. This really was the night of the Walking Dead. So thank you for being with us and for being a sparky audience that gave us some important questions to address. Thank you very much. And thank you to my panel. Dinner's in the usual place. Thank you, people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.